I'm not sure if everybody heard that, but this webinar will be recorded from this point on. I'll mention that to the public before we start as well, but we will have this put on our website after, well, I suppose by tomorrow, that anybody that maybe misses an in-person meeting or missed this meeting would be able to view it and listen to it. Just FYI.
That's echoing really bad.
It's not for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't hear it either.
Maybe it's me.
Miles, if you mute, does it still echo? If you're muted when you're not talking, is it still echoing now? So it's better when you're muted. Oh.
Somebody try it again.
Check. How's it sound now, Miles? Still a lot of echo?
It sounds fine to me.
Okay, yeah, and I usually it's when someone has maybe too many mics open.
Can he call in on a phone and just have his audio on a phone instead of his computer?
Sure can. Just turn off the mic and the speaker on the computer and dial in on the phone.
Miles, and I'm also showing you as a attendee and a panelist. I don't know if you're on there twice somehow. That could maybe be the cause of your echo.
Yeah, maybe he has two video windows open.
Can you hear me,
How would
Mark?
it do it?
Oh.
That'll totally do it. Do it.
Hello, Mark. Ken Forberg. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ken, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm not getting any. I'm getting a nice volume, crisp, clear. Just thought I'd let you know. So I'm going to mute to help you solve the rest of the problems. But I am on board. Just to let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If you've got Miles on twice, maybe you just want to disconnect one of them.
Yeah, I just did that. Maybe that'll be better.
You're a Zoom troubleshooter now.
Oh, man.
I think we got the thumbs up. I think it's better now, huh, Miles?
Yeah, not echoing bad like it was. So the first one wasn't working at all. So
Thanks to those of you who have logged on from the public. Appreciate you being here. We're gonna get started on time at 6. Just decided to open up a little early so folks could troubleshoot, as you can see. So anyway, be patient and we'll get going here shortly. Once again, we'll be going here in a couple minutes, just giving folks a few more minutes to log on.
Tomatoes here in Zula, but our housing prices seem never ending. Hold on, you have a big one.
All right, by my cell phone, which is never wrong, I see that it is 6 p.m. So we'll get going here. We may have other folks join us after we begin, but that's okay. But welcome, thank you all, both panelists, CAC members, Commissioner Robinson, FDP staff, and definitely the public for joining us on this CAC Zoom webinar. Of course, we'd prefer this to do these all in person, but this is just a way we decided to kind of go to get the CAC involved and also have anybody who wanted to be able to log into one of these season setting meetings. We are hosting other ones across the region. We had Haber last night, and next week we have Plentywood, Malta, and Glasgow. This meeting is also a Citizens Advisory Council meeting. That's what the CAC stands for. CAC is made up in Region 6 of volunteers from across the region, representative variety of geographical areas and interests. We really appreciate their time and effort they put towards being part of that group. We typically have 3 to 4 meetings a year, and this was elected to be one of the meetings, I guess, as far as in the winter. So besides a season setting as being the main agenda, we'll have time at the end for our CAC members to do their typical roundtable, let us know what's going on in their region and area, and what they're hearing from the field, and also a few updates from Region 6 as well. We'll have them introduce themselves in a minute, but before we get into that, I'd just like to say my name is Mark Cloker. I'm the information manager for Region 6 for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. This is fairly new to me running these webinars, so please bear with me if I make any mistakes. It's not intentional. This is a webinar as opposed to maybe a Zoom meeting you might do with friends or family. So there's kind of some different things that we'll work through on answering questions and allowing folks to speak. But again, I'll go through that here in just a little bit. So as you can see, Scott put up there the agenda. Basically, welcome, purpose, why are we doing this? I'm covering now. We'll do some introductions of the CAC staff and Fish, Wildlife, and Park staff that's present. Scott Thompson, Wildlife Manager for Region 6, will give a little background on the season setting process and where we're at right now. Scott will go through these proposed changes and we'll allow plenty of time for questions by both CAC members and the public that are attending. And then again, towards the end of the meeting, we'll have our CAC roundtable with some regional updates. So basically the purpose of this meeting, I kind of mentioned already, but it's main agenda is the season setting process for the upcoming 22-23 hunting season. And we're here to provide information, basically to help answer any questions that, again, CAC or the public may have. There's many public comment options that you guys will have the opportunity to comment on. We're going to show you how to do that. That will be sent to the Fish and Wildlife Commission so they can use your comments to help them make their decision. Those comments the period ends on January 21st. And again, the website's right there, or you can email to that fwpwild@mt.gov. We'll also show you a little bit at the end here how that works. So along with that, we'll go ahead and start out with introductions. So first of all, I'd like us to start with the CAC. I'd like you guys to, I'll call on you first and then unmute and introduce yourselves. Kind of let us know, kind of our typical thing of where you're from, what you do, and your interest or involvement with FWP. So we'll start with our CAC chair, Mrs. Perry Jacobs.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to everybody for joining us this evening. Yeah, I'm Perry Jacobs. My husband and I ranch 50 miles south of Malta. We border on the southern end of our place, the CMR National Wildlife Refuge, and of course have a lot of BLM land that we utilize for grazing. My interest in participating in the CAC is, as a rancher, we provide a lot of feed and for wildlife. It's fun to see them on the landscape. And I just wanted to participate with FWP in discussing issues that there may be and sharing information with them to help them understand how the wildlife are behaving in our environment.
Great, thanks, Perry. I'm just going to go down the line, a list of panelists that I have here. Fred, Perry, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Fred Perry. I live in Malta, lived here all my life. I retired from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and now I fish and hunt. And that's the main reason that I'm on this committee, is just to kind of represent the fishermen and the hunters. And that's about all I got to say.
Thanks, Fred. I appreciate it. Great job. Next up, Aaron Whitmer.
I'm Aaron Whitmer from Havre. Work as a police officer here for 20 years. Basically, why I got into the CAC was to find out more what the Fish and Game does, and because I've been a sportsman for 30 plus years, I just was interested in being a voice of, the sports person out there. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Aaron. I think you have the best camera of anybody. You're really clear.
On my phone.
Oh, okay, well, that's probably why. All right, thanks. Jay Crandall.
Hi, everybody. Good to see everybody again. It's been a while. Farm and ranch, northwest of Scobie, about 36 miles along the Canadian border. My interest is always enjoyed wildlife, being around them, being involved with them, and love hunting and fishing. Concerns, CWD is a big concern on my mind with our wildlife, and just enjoy knowing what's going on and having input and being able to listen to other people. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. Lars Anderson.
Hi, I'm Lars Anderson. I work for American Prairie and I live down south of Malta, about 40 miles. And I've lived out here going on 9 years now. And so I personally have a lot of interest in wildlife and hunting and being out in the landscape like this. And my employer has a lot of interest in wildlife as well. And so I enjoy being part of this group and seeing some of the behind the scenes action from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks.
Great, thanks, Lars. Ken Forbreg.
Ken Forbreg, Culbertson, Montana. CAC member of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and I'm very proud to be one. I've enjoyed my time spent with the CAC. It's so overwhelming how much is done throughout the state with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And that's why I had this opportunity to join this committee, and I enjoy it very much. Very outdoorsy, and I really promote our youth to spend more time in the great outdoors. That's what it's all about. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken, and thanks for all your work with your Ike's Pond, because that definitely has gotten a lot of kids in the outdoors. Miles Hutton.
Yes, it has. Yes, it's going over really well. So anyway, move on. Thank you.
Miles Hutton.
Yeah, I'm Miles Hutton from Turner. I'm a rancher and a Blaine County commissioner, a hunter and an outfitter, and a 29-year hunter education instructor. I've been interested in the goings on of Region 6 fish and wildlife for a long time. Not so much the fish. I'm not much of a fisherman, but I've been involved with the wildlife for a long time, on to lots of meetings over the years and stuff. Just figured if you're gonna be gonna talk about stuff, you just as well get involved. So thank you.
We appreciate it. Thanks, Miles. Scott Azure.
Hear me? All right, Scott Azure here, Poplar, Montana. I'm the environmental technician for our housing authority, but I'm also the chairman of our tribal fish and game commission here. Been on the CAC for 3-4 years now, something like that. Avid outdoorsman, hunting, fishing, whatever we can do year round to get outside, and just a general interest in outdoors for for all of us. So that's me.
Thanks, Scott. I think that's it. I do have a telephone number of 406 something or other 091. I'm not sure who that is actually. And or how to for them to unmute themselves. Let's see.
*6.
Hi, this is
Oh, okay. There
Brian
we go.
Olson.
Oh, okay, Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah, for whatever reason, my Zoom came up briefly and then went away, and I can't get it back. So anyway, I'm Brian Olson, CAC here at Fort Peck. I am a retired BNSF guy, and I fish and hunt.
Great. I appreciate that, Brian. Sorry you're having problems with connections there, but thanks for being on. We had a few other members that weren't able to make it tonight, but just again to let the public attendees that are on here know, this is the CAC is part of a volunteer deal that occasionally we're looking for new members as old other folks maybe time out or elect to look at something else. So just if you're ever interested in being on the committee, get a hold of me and or look for opportunities to potentially join our Region 6 CAC. They do a lot of great work for us and help us out with a lot of advice. With that, I'd also, I guess, like to have Commissioner, Fish and Wildlife Commissioner Leslie Robinson introduce herself, if she would.
Sure. Thank you. Leslie Robinson, we ranch near Zortman. Our ranch has been in block management for over 20 years now. And I was a former county commissioner for 12 years. So I worked quite a bit with FWP through the years. And I'm honored to be on the commission. And I don't quite have a year in yet, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing and enjoying working with everybody. And look forward to the meeting.
Thanks much, Leslie, and thanks for being on this call. I'm sure folks really appreciate it. Last but not least, I'll have a few of the FWP staff introduce themselves, that especially ones you might hear from tonight that you may have questions for them. So we'll start with Ryan Williamson.
There we go. My name is Ryan Williamson. I'm the area wildlife biologist for the Plentywood area, pretty much the greater eastern part of the region. I live in Outlook. I've been here for about 10 years and that's it.
Thanks, Ryan. Let's see, Scott Hemmer.
I'm Scott Hemmer. I'm the wildlife biologist based out of Havre. I guess I've been here for Havre, I guess about 11 years as well. So thank you.
Okay, Drew Henry.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Drew Henry. I'm the regional supervisor here in Glasgow for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks in Region 6. I've been in this position for not quite 6 months. Formerly, I was the wildlife biologist in Glasgow in the Plentywood area for about 11 years. Just like to welcome everybody this evening. I appreciate all the attendance. Looks like we got a pretty good list of attendees. You know, I think we all like to be able to get together in person, but certainly Zoom offers us a really neat opportunity here, not only for the public to be able to put a face to a name with their regional CAC members, but also for the CAC and the public to be able to take part into this portion of the season setting process that we're in right now. Like Mark said, we have other meetings going on in the region. Next week we'll be in Plentywood, Glasgow and Malta. So we love to see you in person, but this is certainly a good opportunity to engage if you can't make those meetings. And Lord knows the weather hasn't been too great for traveling. So welcome and thank you for attending.
Thanks, Drew. That's about it, I think, as far as for like panelists for this part of the meeting. We have a number of other FWP folks are on as attendees. Steve Dolby, our fisheries manager, Shane Reno, our warden captain, Ken Plort, our upland game bird biologist, Jared Krebs, a fisheries biologist, and a few other out of region folks as well. But if they have any particular comments to make, we'll make sure to get them heard and or raise your hands. I don't know if I want too many more panelists or not. It kind of gets too many. So with that, just a couple things, particularly for the attendees that are on how this Zoom thing is going to work. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott Thompson here shortly. One thing is, if you can, try to make sure your name appears on your screen. Just looking at the attendees, there's a few folks that just have initials or other things. Maybe you're trying to remain incognito, but it's just nice for us to say, hey, Bob has a question rather than JY or whatever it is. So please, if you figure out how to do that, I think there's a button on the bottom that allows you to change your name on the screen. So as we get going into the presentation, and especially when Scott starts presenting some of these season setting proposals, undoubtedly many of you are going to have questions. So there's a couple options to do that. One, there is a Q&A box that's on the bottom of your screen. If you hover over that with your mouse, or I think on your phone, it should say Q&A, and you can type in a question there, and we'll be able to see those pop up, and we'll definitely answer them as we can, probably orally, so everyone can hear it. The other thing you can do is raise your hand. And so what that does, there's a little thing that looks kind of like this, again, on your screen somewhere, typically on the bottom. That'll show a hand next to your name that I can see, and some of these other panelists, and then we should be able to recognize that and make sure you get your question answered. And when that happens, I'll say, Bob, I see you got your hand raised. I'm going to allow you to speak. At that point, you'll have to unmute to actually start talking. It's a little awkward, but we should be able to get through it. I'm sure most of you have done these things before in the past. So if you don't have a mic on your computer, which a lot of desktop computers don't have one, you won't be able to speak. because nothing will be able to hear your voice. But if that's the case, just get in that Q&A box and type it out, and we should be able to decipher your question. I believe if you are on a phone, I think Leslie mentioned, I think it's *6 to unmute. So I'm not sure how you raise your hand though on the phone, if it's an old school phone, but hopefully again, we'll be able to work through that. If you do have any specific questions and are just completely at a loss, you could dial our office number, 406-228-3700, and I should be able to pick up the phone and maybe walk you through it as we're going. I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Scott Thompson to kick us off here tonight.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Thompson. I'm the Region 6 Wildlife Manager, and I'm going to present the proposals for season setting. And the state has quite a number of proposals, and I'm going to address the ones that are most pertinent to Region 6. So as Mark and Drew mentioned, there's many other meetings across the state, and I'd encourage you to tune into one of those if you have more interest in another region. But tonight's purpose certainly is to provide some clarity about the proposals and to let folks know how to comment and be part of the process. So, all right, I think I need to share my screen. Can you folks see a slide? Mark Cloker, can you see one?
Yep, looks good, Scott.
Okay, I just wanted to circle back to the purpose of the meeting that Mark Cloker talked about earlier, and it's really to help answer questions. We want to provide that clarity, what the proposals are. Hear maybe a bit about what some of the justification behind a particular proposal might be. What I'm going to caution folks about is you may be anxious to provide a comment, let us know how you feel about it, and that's fine and dandy, but the best way for the Fish and Wildlife Commission to hear your comment is a couple of ways through the website or email. And just a reminder that the commission is the decision maker on these proposals, and they'll be receiving comment through January 21st. So I'll remind you of that towards the end, and then I think Mark Cloker is going to walk you through a little bit on the comment process too. So. All right, season setting, what the heck is it? So every 2 years, Fish, Wildlife and Parks reviews the hunting seasons for all species and recommends more framework type adjustments. And so what I mean by framework are hunting district boundaries, license types, permit types, changes in the season dates. It may be eliminating some licenses, maybe adding. So it's kind of the framework around the hunting seasons. Typically, the biennial season setting process, what this is, does not necessarily always address quotas, and that would be like limited quotas for a license or permit. It can certainly, because if we add a new license or change around a structure, we may need to put a number on it. But I just want to remind folks that we, in addition to this process, we annually review survey information and gather intel on harvest and those kind of things. And we can also adjust quotas that are, and so that when I say season setting, just kind of keep that in mind. It's more about the framework around the seasons. As we go through this, I'm going to pause. I'm going to go through it in kind of sections, and I'm going to pause for some questions, and it'll be a little bit by species. And so when I get to the end of elk, there'll be some time for questions. And And so just kind of keep that in mind if you want to raise your hand or type something in, and then we can address it. What I don't want to see is wait till the very end, and then you may have a number of questions about proposals that were earlier in the presentation. So a little bit about what the process looks like. For CAC members, you may have recalled earlier in the fall we met and we discussed some potential changes that we were thinking about. And so some of these will look familiar to you. Some of them have been adjusted based on some public scoping and vetting that we went through in about September 20th through October 20th. And so for the public, they've seen some of these. Some of them look a little different because we recommended maybe an adjustment based on what we heard. And so that's that second section there in green. We as a department prepared our final proposals for the Fish and Wildlife Commission in late November, and then in December the commission decides whether to put proposals out for public comment. Okay, and so that leads us to the period we're in right now, and I can see I've got a date off already, but we're in this public comment period that's in December 15th, and it actually runs through January 21st. I think that was extended. And so just one reminder, folks may have already commented on proposal through that earlier scoping / vetting process. And if you still feel strongly or have an opinion on these, it's still valuable to comment again, because then the commission can see your comment, and all the commissioners can. So, and then the Fish and Wildlife Commission will make their final decisions at their February 4th commission meeting. So a little bit about some objectives around this season setting process. And we've heard quite a bit about the complexities of our hunting regulations. And one of the challenges that we have is making our regs simpler. And so we, every region was tasked with looking for ways of reducing, either the number of hunting districts, which means combining districts, eliminating some license types, permit types, combining them, essentially so there's fewer types out there. Review the season dates, see if we can have fewer dates out there, meaning, I think at one time we had 17 different elk dates, late seasons, early seasons, different openings, and that's just one example, but just trying to look for where can we shore up those dates so that they're similar. And then lastly is back to those hunting districts, is look for opportunities to make common hunting districts so that it's a district that's for deer, elk, and in our country, antelope makes a lot of sense to combine there. But look for other ways of lining up those districts. So those are some of the objectives that we were tasked with, especially this year. This isn't a new concept in our region. If you were in tune the last 2 years ago when we went through the same process, season setting process, in Region 6, we combined, moved some boundaries around, and we reduced our deer and elk districts from 16 down to 12. We standardized nearly all of our districts so that they're deer, elk, and antelope. So across the northern tier, we used to have 2 antelope districts north of Highway 2, and we actually made that into 3, but now they're the same districts for deer, elk, antelope, 600, 670, and 640. We did not do any combinations in the 620s and 630s. Elk management was probably the biggest driver in why we didn't make some of those combinations earlier. But tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about some potential changes there. Again, a couple years ago, we focused on some more major boundary lines. Highway 2, we use as an example of a major boundary line. And through all this, we were able to reduce the number of unique license types from 58 to 50. So doesn't seem like a big win, but you know, we started the process a couple years ago. So just to reiterate, you know, I think we have this goal, this objective of simplifying regulations, but what we don't want to do is sacrifice either, you know, our ability to manage wildlife populations or hunting opportunities. So trying to find that middle ground, how can we find ways to accomplish both of those? So with that, I'm going to move into some of the elk proposals. Are there any questions, I guess, on process or some of the objectives at this point? And I'm going to ask Mark Gloker, maybe some of the other staff, to kind of help me keep an eye out for some of the questions too. So.
Yep, I don't see anything right now, Scott.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the first one I'm going to move into is an elk proposal. And this is at a statewide level. The proposal is to add a new statewide unlimited antlerless elk B license that's valid only on private land in districts and elk hunting districts that are greater than 200% above objective. Objective meaning the set numerical population objective, and where our most recent elk survey relates to that. So the framework, so to speak, around these new B licenses would be they'd be open during all open seasons that are opened for that hunting district. So for example, you know, in 690, there is a archery, there's a general season, and there's a late shoulder season. So in this example, an unlimited B license on private land would be valid during all those. That second bullet lists for 2022 the districts that would fit that 200% above objective or more. So you can see a laundry list of districts there. I will point out 690 falls in that 200% above objective category. So this proposal would impact elk management 690. Among other districts, of course. I'm going to move into the, I guess I don't want to leave some of these too far. Are there any questions on that one? Not seeing any. And I pause there because that is a statewide. It doesn't impact a lot of districts, and it is something that maybe many of the public or the CAC members have not seen because it was a relatively new proposal. So. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. I'm going to move on. Doesn't mean you can't ask later about it. So. Second proposal I'm going to talk about is again at a statewide level. And it is again on elk permits. And when I say permit, a permit is a usually allocated or is always allocated through our limited drawing. Let's see, April 1st is the deadline for elk permits. And they're typically used for either sex opportunities. So if you put in for bull elk or either sex in the breaks, the bear spawn region 6, this is what I'm talking about, those elk permits. So not like cow B licenses, okay? And so the proposal is to limit the holder of a permit, an elk either sex permit, to hunting only antlered or bull elk in that district during the time frame that the permit is valid for. gonna talk about that example there. So if Jay Crandall is lucky enough to draw the 690-21 archery either sex permit in the Bear's Paw, he'd be restricted to bull elk hunting in that district during archery season. However, after archery season, he could use his general license in a general district somewhere else. Okay. It does not impact antlerless elk hunting. So if a holder of a permit chose to go somewhere else and harvest a cow where there was a general opportunity, they could still do that. Again, the example kind of demonstrates that you could use that outside the dates of your permit in another area. So, does that make sense to you folks?
So you could, if suppose you drew a bull tag in the breaks, then as long as that season was open, you couldn't hunt anywhere else in the state with your general elk license, right?
For a bull.
For a bull, right? Yep.
Yep. You got it, Miles.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that one.
I will say, I know breaks hunters have brought this up for years, and it was something that our director's office took an ear to, definitely, and no doubt was a reason why we see it as a proposal here. So,
Hey, Scott, we got a question from John on the Q&A of, could you explain the reasoning behind this proposal?
I think it has a bit to do with, I guess, hunters committing to a district, and we have certainly folks that put in for the breaks, for example, for years, and when they draw that license, they're committed to that permit, they're committed to that district, and they're going to hunt a bull there. It does make a hunter think about whether they're going to put in for a limited draw elk permit, because it is a reduction in their opportunity. They can't go somewhere else and hunt for it. So it does commit the hunter a bit more, which could impact drawing odds. Maybe folks that aren't 100% committed to hunting a district for bulls. Another reason or thought is we currently have the system with mule deer special permit districts for bucks, where you can't shoot a mule deer buck in another district. So it would, I guess, so to speak, sync up those two species in their restriction. Those are the two that come to mind. Drew, if you had any other thoughts, I'm trying to remember, or anybody else on the staff.
Scott, maybe I'll just throw out, I think just because I heard this example, I think from our Breaks Elk working group, that someone from Kalispell or whatever says, oh, I'm going to put in for the breaks archery permit, draws it, and out their back door on Forest Service and kills an elk, and kind of remove that opportunity from someone else that may have actually utilized it. I think that's kind of the other part of the argument.
Certainly, we've heard that from the public. Yeah. Okay, I hope that answers the question. That is a bit of the reasoning behind it. So. Okay, I'm going to move on. And so those are the two statewide elk proposals that impact Region 6. There are some other ones that affect some of the 900 series, if you're in tune to that. The reason I don't present them here is Region 6 hasn't been part of those bundles. It doesn't impact us, but certainly you can look up some of those proposals on, I think Mark will show you here in a little bit on those master lists. So I'm going to move into a little bit on hunting district consolidation in Region 6. And this certainly impacts deer and elk primarily. Lion is mentioned there because our lion districts fall in sync with deer and elk. So the proposal is what we did put out for public scoping, earlier in the year. And so you'll see it again here if folks have looked at this before. And the CAC has also seen this. And we really heard a mix of, support and concerns about it, and enough of both sides of it that we felt it was important to put it out for public comment again. So the proposal is to combine a portion of combine District 622 with a portion of District 631 west of Ridge Road. And I'm going to put a map up here in a minute. And then to coincide with that, the remainder of District 631 and District 630 and 632 would be all combined into one district. Antelope districts would also be adjusted. So we provide that alignment that I spoke about earlier. So we have common districts. Again, this hits on the objective of trying to reduce the number of districts and increase their size in the regulations. Graphically on a map, you can see what that looks like. The orange lines would be the proposed districts, and then underlying that, there are black finer lines, which are the previous district boundaries. So you can see what that would look like. I will say on our website, these maps can be also seen there at both the local level like this and at the statewide level. I'm going to talk a little bit about reasoning behind the proposal, and what the reasons I'm going to describe are largely driven by elk use, our counts, collar data, those kind of things. What we felt like was a good match for what the management tools we have with the elk herd use of that area. We certainly have heard a fair bit from the public about how it's going to impact their hunting habits, what they see in the fall for elk distribution. And so, yeah, there's several different sides to this, but this one will certainly emphasize why we encourage people to comment, bring in their whether it's concern or support for it. And so the commission can hear that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the reasoning, some of the biology behind it. First of all, I think it was, around 2014, 13, somewhere in there, we have elk collared in 622, 621. And our goal is to look at elk seasonal use across their range, and also in relation to access and things like that. The map that you see here represents kind of a thunderstorm heat map of elk use. So the redder, the hotter the color, the higher use that the area receives. And so if you're familiar with the area, 622 on that eastern side is Timber Creek. The south would be Fort Peck Lake. And so the red that you see there, red and orange, we saw it in the collar data. The elk tend to move over on the east side of Timber Creek frequently in the wintertime. Kind of depends on winter severity. And so we end up with elk that are using two different districts. And this is nothing new for elk in the state of Montana. They certainly move across the landscape. So the black line represents the current district boundary. I switched slides to what we would propose, what we have as a proposal, and that's to move that boundary to that Ridge Road And what that does is it grabs pretty much the year-round use of that elk herd within District 622. It matches up the management tools that we have for 622. It's a bit more aggressive elk, cow elk, quota, shoulder season, those kind of things. So, we felt pretty fortunate to have some elk collar data that kind of helped us develop this proposal. A little bit about aerial surveys. So we fly elk every other year in the breaks. We count them in the winter, count them in February from the air. To no surprise, elk are not always in the same place in February as they are in October. So elk move. And so we are constantly challenged with counting elk that winter in 631 as those previous maps described. They're in 622 in the fall. But the fact of it is, where we count them is where we attribute those elk and as they relate to the management objectives. And so I did put the management objectives up here. If you've been in tune to this, they should look familiar, but for the 620 districts, we're trying to manage for 1,400 to 1,650 elk. And in the 630s is essentially 300 to 350 elk. So I'm going to run through a series of tables, and I know there's a lot of information here. These are actually raw counts of elk in those districts from aerial surveys in February. The top table is under the current boundaries for those districts where those elk numbers would total. And this is the 2016 elk survey, and I'm going to move through a few different ones. And then the bottom would be, if we use the proposed hunting district lines, what those elk numbers would look like. Okay, and the reason we can do this is because we GPS every elk group, and we can go back and say, okay, all these elk groups were in this part of the district, and we can attribute them here or there. So, so the top one in 2016, 2,800 elk in the 620s. Again, we're trying to manage under 1,650. We got a pile of elk there. On the 630s, we got 500 plus elk, so we're over objective, certainly. Under the proposed boundary adjustment, a number of those elk that are wintering in that kind of that area where we're moving it would now be in 622. We'd be over 3,000 elk, certainly a high number in this survey. And then the 630s would be just under 300, so actually at objective. So, same kind of theme here. I switched slides to 2018. We counted 1,600 elk in the 620s, about 600 in the 630s. But again, we've got 300 elk that are wintering in that kind of buffer area there. If you'd attribute them back to 622, which is very likely, where they spend their fall, it brings the 630s down to 288 and 2,000 elk in the 620s. So, repeat that one more time in the 2020 elk survey. You see a similar pattern. We were surprised how consistent, if you moved that boundary, how consistent the 630 count became. It was under 300 consistently. And the reason I talk about the 630s a fair bit is there is quite a bit of support and seems to be growing tolerance for more elk in that district. Well, we can't do a whole lot right now if we're consistently over objective. But we feel like this boundary change could set the framework up to talk about objectives. We're currently at a pretty stable level, and that objective could change through the next elk plan rewrite. So. A little bit about, to correspond with the boundary change would be a number of adjustments in quotas. I said I wasn't going to talk about quotas, but because all these boundary changes, you can't move lines and affect different elk herds without adjusting some of the excuse me, some of the quotas. So because 622 suddenly grows under the proposal, we would propose to increase the either sex rifle permits by 10, or excuse me, by 20. There's two different license permit types there. If you recall, the 630, 631, 632 would be combined. And so the B licenses for cows would be combined into one license type, and we'd propose that we start with 50. Again, we would be at a level that is under objective, or at objective, excuse me. The rifle permit for the 630s would be combined, and we'd start with a quota of 25 permits for the rifle permit. And then the archery, again, we combine those into one archery permit with a proposed quota of 200. Again, this hits on the goal of trying to combine license types so that there are fewer out there. So I'm going to pause there. Fair bit of information, maybe some confusion. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Yes, Scott, Ken Forbreg here.
Yeah, Ken.
What have been the negative, not necessarily negative, but those that don't like to see this change? I see it as a good change. So what have the comments been that don't like the change of redistricting those?
Well, certainly we recognize that there are hunters that have a long history of hunting 631 as it is. And they, as many of us have long habits of hunting the same country, and a change like this doesn't happen without impacting your opportunity somehow. And so some folks would have to decide, well, shoot, I like to hunt on the other side of the road now, and I I may have to put in for a different permit, and I might not agree with that. So that is a concern we've heard. So, a change in how they hunt the district. I've heard some concern about that area between that Ridge Road and Timber Creek is really accessible from the east. Primarily, you don't come into that country from the west side.
Right.
You're traveling through all of 631, and you really have to want to hunt that sliver of the district. If it's all of a sudden in 622, I guess it changes the dynamics of people accessing that sliver and of that country. I had one other thought on my mind. I've been talking to a few folks about this, certainly. Because 622 certainly has a higher quota, more liberal quotas and license numbers, it would be very, the elk that reside there during the fall in that sliver of ground would, a concern is they'd be easily pushed west into more sanctuary.
Yes.
Because there would be those more liberal number of hunters and licenses. So they, under the current scenario, it's more conservative license numbers, and that country can, hold on to some elk a bit longer during the fall hunting season. Does that make sense, Ken?
Yes, it does. Yes, I've lived it.
Yeah. So those are a few things. I'm sure I'm missing something. I've certainly talked to a lot of folks about it, and I've heard those concerns, and I'm really encouraging folks to make some comments on it. It's one thing to tell me, it's a greater thing to tell the commission. So yeah.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet, Ken.
Hey, Scott, this is Lars. Why did
Lars.
the 620 number go up? Because looking at that map, it just doesn't look like they really use 620 much at all.
So when we did the combination on the either sex permits, actually the table I'm on, Lars, you know, if you combine those two, either sex, we have 40 right now in those districts. And, you know, we're proposing to remove part of the district, and we're trying to, I guess, reallocate those permits. And so because we've gained some ground in 622, we proposed add 10 to each of them. Why 620? That's the one that's valid off of the CMR. We do see quite a few bulls that winter, and they'll spend, you know, later part of the fall general hunting season in that country as well. So it seemed appropriate to kind of split it between the two. The map that I showed was cow distribution. That heat map was colored cows, certainly to represent, you know, those big cow groups. And so, you know, sometimes bull distribution can be a little bit different. And we feel like, yeah, the bulls are, you know, spending quite a bit of time in that country as well. So, does that answer your question, Lars?
Yep, it does. Thank you.
You bet. Cloaker, you seen anything else? Questions? I think I got too many going.
I am not. I was informed that if you are on a phone, *9 will raise your hand and *6 to unmute. That's mostly for Brian, I think, right now. But no, I don't.
Okay.
Folks showing me questions.
Scott, I have a quick question, Jay.
Yeah, Jay.
What's Mr. Anderson think of it? He lives on Timber Creek there. He's a retired biologist. And I had a very good visit with him last hunting season. What's his
Ron
thoughts
Stoneberg?
on? Yeah. Over there on Anderson Horse Ranch.
Oh, yeah, Ron and Rose down there.
Yeah, what's his thoughts on it? He lives right there.
Well, yeah, I know that, you know, it's that country in Timber Creek is either feast or famine with elk. Certainly we see big elk groups that'll move across the line. And we certainly hear about, you know, elk and fences in that country, and they're hard critters to in those big bunches to hunt.
I know Ron Garwood, he was talking about it because he liked to have 631 hunting district, and he was able to go right up to Timber Creek.
Yep.
And he, you know, he was afraid he was going to lose his hunting ground, I guess. So
yeah, Ron spoke with me earlier on the phone, and you know, I hope I represented kind of his concern with Ken Forbreg's question. You know, I think he had kind of those similar concerns, which we've heard from other hunters as well. So yeah.
Okay.
But currently, right now, with your question about Stoneberg's on the old Anderson Ranch there, their ranch is split right now. They're in districts, and this would put all of them in one district. But that only means that now it splits somebody else up, you know, up the road that bridges Burke Ranch Road or Ridge Road. So you know, there's trade-offs certainly, but the proposal would put them all in one district. So.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
I saw a question here from, it says John on the question and answer. Could you explain the reasoning behind the proposal? I think I went through most of, you know, the reasoning that we're using. John, if I'm missing something, please just type in another question if you had a little bit more to that. So I don't want to miss your intent there. So.
I think his question, Scott, was in reference to a previous slide. We answered that one already.
Oh, okay. I'm behind. Thank you. All right. I'm going to move on. Next proposal is to eliminate antlerless elk permits. So I described earlier, an elk permit is something it permits you to use your general elk license in a district in a special way. Most often they are either sex permits for bulls. We have a scattering of antlerless elk permits. So it's a permit that allows you to use your general license for an antlerless elk. We've been asked to eliminate those statewide and make all elk permits only for bulls or either sex elk. And so we have the 698 antlerless permit. It's valid in District 620, 621, 622, off of the CMR National Wildlife Refuge. So we're looking to convert this to an elk B license. So the difference being, you would put in for it under the proposal, you'd put in June 1st for it, but it would still be restricted off of the CMR. It'd be valid in all 3 of those districts, and it'd be valid in archery and general season as it is now. It hits on the goal of trying to, simplify, eliminate some of the license permit types out there. Really what it does is it puts all elk permits as bull or either sex opportunities. I'm going to pause there. Any questions on that one? I know there may be some comments, but it's certainly happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Scott, I actually have a question here. I hope I'm not muddying the waters, but if for some reason that other proposal about having to hunt your permit in that area goes through and this one does not, would that mean folks could only hunt their 698 cow and not hunt a general bull elk elsewhere? I don't know.
No, because that only pertains to antlered or bull hunting.
Oh, it is specifically. Okay.
Strict antlerless hunting.
Thanks.
Yep. I hadn't thought about that scenario, but. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Move into the bear's paw. The first one is to remove the 699-01, which probably doesn't mean a lot to most of you, but it's a youth elk B license. So it's only valid for, is it 14 and under, I believe. They're the only ones that can put in for it. If you recall, 2 years ago, we combined all of these youth elk B licenses that we had in the region into one license type, and that's this 699. That was in an attempt to simplify things. We used to have 3 of these, 3 different ones with lower quotas. We combined them all into one, and it was valid in 690, all the 620s, all the 630s. Well, at the same time, District 690, we moved it into a general license. You could harvest a cow in that district. And so youth, currently, they could put in for this elk B license, or they could just buy an elk general license and harvest a cow. So again, in the spirit of simplification, we would look to just remove that license from 690. It's had a very low success rate. It's typically been 2 to 3 elk in that district that have been harvested with it. The one thing that it does is the youth can hunt 2 days earlier under this B license before anybody else. And so if we took that out of the bear's paw, it would remove that opportunity for youth in the bear's paw, those 2 early days. But after that, they could use a general license for cows. The license would remain for all other districts.
So
Scott, did the 69901, because it was a B license, that they could have harvested an elk with their B license and their general license for cows?
Oh, yep, Miles, yep. So if we removed it, it would, yeah, they wouldn't be able to as easily harvest 2 elk. Or have
Okay,
elk tags in their pocket.
right.
We'll have those other elk B licenses and anybody can put in for. If the new unlimited license goes through, there would be that opportunity. So there's a bit of a few options that are in motion here. So,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Thanks.
Yep. The second one that affects the bear's paw or the 690 country is proposal to increase the either sex elk permit from 35 to 50 and adjust the quota range to 15 to 100. I'm going to take a second to explain what a quota range is. You know, I talked about season settings, more about framework and less about quotas. A quota range is something that we ask the commission to operate, for them to approve so that we can operate within those bounds on an annual basis. And so currently we have a quota range for that permit of 10 to 50. We're asking to expand the range to 15 to 100. And so that's so that we can respond to, say if we fly a winter survey, we see a big bump in numbers, we can adjust quotas without having to constantly go back to the commission for those adjustments. So that's what a quota range is. And that is part of the season setting process, all those quota ranges too. And then the last bullet is just a reminder, I talked about already, that statewide unlimited elk B license valid on private land, that would impact 690. So that's a repeat from that first slide. Any questions there, folks?
So that would mean, so that
No,
would mean
go
you
ahead.
could no longer hunt the 690 with just a general tag for an antlerless?
No, that would still be on a valid opportunity, Lars. Yep, sorry if I confuse that. General season would stay.
Am I still on?
Yeah, Ken.
Okay, is this private land issue only because of damage, or what's the reason why state BLM or whatever land versus private land? What's the specifics of the private land stated?
Well, I think the concept, Ken, is, these districts are, more than 200% above objective. Lots of elk.
Okay,
Frequently, the overabundance of elk is driven by, sanctuary areas, private land, kind of the dynamics there. And so it's private land only so that it doesn't just suddenly, open the gates to all public land, all throughout the district, which, has the potential of driving those elk even faster to private land. So I think it's trying to thread the needle there a bit and provide a unlimited, the availability of a B license is not the bottleneck for a private land owner to address cow elk on their property.
so it's obvious that the private landowner is well in favor of this. It appears that way.
I don't think I could comment on that. I think
Okay,
the public process and comment process needs to weigh in on that. So stay tuned.
okay. All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to move on.
Hey, Scott, before you move on,
Yeah.
Scott Azure had a question in the chat, actually, similar to Ken's question relative to private landowners in these districts being okay with this proposal. And I think you answered that, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to cover it again or not.
Scott, the fact of it is the proposal came up during the commission meeting in December. And so it wasn't something that we were able to vet with private landowners in any of these districts. So the public process is going to be pretty important on this one to see where folks sit on it. So. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on. I think I've already, moved the slide to deer. I think our only deer proposal addresses whitetail deer. And we are proposing to eliminate a whitetail B license, an antlerless whitetail B license. It's the 699. It's one that we've had under a quota. Folks can put in for it in the drawing. It annually is undersubscribed, so it goes to surplus where it sells. Hunters can buy it, and typically it is available for purchase nearly the whole hunting season. So again, in the spirit of simplification, trying to eliminate, we already have another whitetail B license. It's a single region. It's available over the counter. And so we'd look to retain the over the counter, eliminate this other quota based one, and then increase the per person limit of the over the counter to from 1 to 4. And so currently the 699, this limited quota that goes on surplus, when it goes over the counter, hunters can buy up to 7. It's up to their allotted number of whitetail B licenses. And even at that, many years we don't sell it out. And so we feel like this reduces a little bit of complexity around whitetail B licenses. We would look to adjust the per person limit over time in response to EHD, winter events, spikes in the population, things like that. I will admit in years where we have a large EHD outbreak and we have pulled off some of the surplus, this does kind of limit us there. So if, for example, this year we reduced the surplus by 2,000 because of EHD on the eastern side of the region. But again, we feel like, being able to adjust the per person limit, we can adjust from year to year. A little bit about just license trends or license sale trends. This is 2019 through 20. The numbers across the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 is how many licenses, antlerless whitetail licenses were purchased by hunters. So what it tells you is most people buy one. 90% of licenses are bought by people that buy 1 or 2, and very few buy more than 3. And so we feel like the limit of 4 kind of, is that middle ground. It provides some opportunity for those that want to purchase more than 1 or 2. Very few purchase more than 3 as it is. So. Just a little bit about, these are valid region wide. We've managed under this for many years, and we do track harvest distribution over between our districts. And so this across the bottom, you can see the hunting districts, and you can see the higher bars are many of those districts that have either more riparian area, river bottom habitats, or more farmland CRP type habitats. So it does address some of the questions that we get about, well, everybody's going to come to my area and hunt whitetails. And we continually see a pretty even distribution across, you know, about 4 or 5 of those are major harvest districts. One other value of managing at the regional scale, I talked about EHD that we saw on the eastern side, especially this year. By allowing it anywhere in the region, people can be mobile. If they've already bought 3 or 4 of these and they were restricted to say 640, well, we'd probably just as soon not focus all the pressure there. So by them being a state or a region wide, they can be mobile, move to another part of the region that has higher numbers. So. Is that any questions on that? So again, this one's just eliminate the $6.99 whitetail bee license and increase the per person limit on the single region.
I don't see any questions right now, Scott.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna move into birds. Statewide, extend the upland game bird season to January 31st. It currently ends January 1st. And this would include pheasants, sharp-tailed grouse, partridge, both gray and chucker, and mountain grouse. It does not include sage grouse. Any questions?
Why? I love the idea, but why?
The commission decided to put this out for public comment, and I think it's largely driven by increased opportunity. There are some, I know South Dakota, for example, has recent, you know, I think they have 1 or 2 years under their belt of a similar extension. I think the feeling is increased opportunity, and typically late season harvest it does not impact populations.
Can I comment on that, Scott?
Well, you can comment to me in the group, and then you can put your comment into the commission as well. But
yeah,
yes.
Well, and being a lifelong predator caller, I've witnessed so much of this, and so of these roosters literally beating up hens. It doesn't really matter to me, because the more roosters you get rid of during the regular hunting season, if you want to extend it, I don't see where there's anything wrong with that. The fewer the roosters that you have during the winter, the better your hens are going to do in the spring. That's just my comment.
Okay, thank you. And remember to comment to the commission too.
Yeah, I will, definitely. Thank you.
A little bit of just some numbers that we came up with in response to this proposal. South Dakota, I mentioned, they run through January 31st. 2020 was the first year that they did that. South Dakota, it's not the same as here. They harvest 1.1 million pheasants a year. We harvest in Montana about 90,000. So, but when they extended it through the month of January, they harvested about another 100,000 birds. So about 10% of their annual harvest occurred in that January period. Again, Montana, we harvest about 90,000 right now during the season. So just, you know, there's very little experience by other states with this. So South Dakota was our first just look at what might we expect. Is it another 10% harvest? That may be our best estimate at this point. So. a turkey proposal of one of few. Statewide is to establish calendar dates for the spring season of April 15th through May 31st. This would be instead of using the, I don't even know what it is. It's the third Saturday after, Easter. It revolves around a Saturday opener currently, so many days. And so this would establish a set calendar date of April 15th through May 31st. It would mirror the spring black bear season statewide as well. So those two would be on the same calendar dates. It would, on a typical year, it would delay, or at least recent openers, it would delay the opener by about 5 days. And it would extend the closure by about 15 days. So it would make a longer season, later season. And then it does fall similarly to our fall seasons, which are run on calendar dates, January 1st, or excuse me, September 1 through January 1. So again, it hits on that objective of trying to reduce the number of season date structures out there. Second turkey proposal is to allow air rifles as a legal means of taking a turkey in the fall. And you can see there's some caliber restrictions and muzzle velocities on those as well. And the third one is in relation to Region 6 specifically. This one, I think you all have seen before, but it's to adjust the regional boundary for turkey regulations between Region 6 and 7 to mirror our administrative boundaries. Currently, it follows county lines, Richland County, Dawson County lines. And so this would put it on Highway 200, which is our known boundary. What it would do, however, is currently you can buy a Region 7 second turkey license and harvest it in Richland County in Region 6. So it would remove that opportunity in Region 6. Again, it hits on the goal of trying to make all the districts, the hunting districts, the same. The map here would show what that change looks like. So the red would be the proposal, the black is the current, which are on county lines. We're trying to get away from using county lines, trying to identify a county line in the field may not be obvious versus knowing where Highway 200 is. It's a known boundary. The history is, typically we would have, or historically, excuse me, would have gotten harvest reports on a county basis for turkeys. And so that's why most of this was on a county line basis. And we no longer estimate harvest by county, rather by region. So it makes sense to move this to a regional boundary. I think that does it for turkeys. Are there any questions on those 3 turkey proposals? Scott Azure, I'm just waiting for turkey season on Fort Peck still, but
Yeah, I think we probably should get that squared away. We have a meeting the 3rd Monday of this month, I think.
Okay.
I know it's been a while, but when COVID hit, they shut down all of our non-essential commissions, and I guess we were one of them. So we weren't able to have a meeting for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are still thinking about it. I remember you bringing it up earlier. So.
Yeah, and it'll be. I think we were talking about doing it in the fall.
Okay.
And so it'll be like when somebody purchases a tribal fishing license, they can add a paddlefish stamp for $10. And I think we were going to do something similar to that for turkey for people who buy a bird license for the tribe.
Gotcha. Great. Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
Any other
I was just going to remind folks if they're on the attendee list, you can either type a question into the Q&A, or they have to raise their hand, and I believe Mark will be able to give them the ability to unmute at that point.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Getting down towards the end, folks. Migratory bird in the central flyway. The proposal is to establish a light goose conservation order for snow and Ross's geese. That would be in the spring, March 1st to May 15th. So a conservation order is not necessarily a hunting season. It's an order outside of the hunting season framework that allows take of specific waterfowl, and the goal here is to reduce the abundance of light geese that I guess are having detrimental impacts on their Arctic breeding grounds. So this is a allowance that the federal U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service framework allows for, and so the states then need to implement such an order for hunters to utilize this type of season. So the conservation orders typically come with more liberal opportunities, such as I don't think there's a bag limit. Don't need to have a plug in your shotgun. There's a number of things that allow for more take of geese, essentially. So again, only in the central flyway, and it's for light geese in spring. Questions? Okay. Oh, black bears. How could we forget those? Okay, statewide, there's a few different black bear proposals. First one is to eliminate the requirements. The black bears need to be physically inspected by a Fish, Wildlife, and Parks employee. So currently, you shoot a black bear, you bring it in, and the department would place a tag on the hide, and then retrieve a premolar from the jaw for aging purposes, and they need to do that within 10 days. So the proposal is to eliminate the in-person check. Hunters would still need to report the harvest through our hotline phone number within 48 hours, and then we'd ask them to submit the tooth that we previously would have collected. The reason I bring it up for Region 6 is because we are proposing a black bear season in the region. We're proposing it would encompass the entire region. It would be Bear Management Unit 600. It's in response essentially to increasing black bear numbers, more in the western side of the region. But we do see black bears in all parts of the region. We're seeing just increased number of conflicts. It's not overwhelming, but we feel like we're at a point where it's an opportunity to provide hunting opportunity, but also to utilize hunters as a management tool for bears and bear conflict situations. So we would propose that it follow the season dates and opportunities that the other state offers. So that includes in the spring, April 15th through May 31st, and with recent legislation that also allows the use of hounds for black bear hunting in the spring. We would offer a hound training season, which is June 1st through June 15th, also on the heels of legislation. And then in the fall, there would be the archery and the fall general seasons. We would have a quota of 4 bears in the spring and then 4 bears in the fall. And so once those 4 bears were harvested in either season, the black bear season would close for the region. The last, I guess that's it. Any questions on black bear? Okay. So I think I said it a few times. Comment, please. Comment online, comment at the email address. Your role as members of the public is to give your feedback to the Fish and Wildlife Commission. We're certainly here to listen to that comment, but it's most meaningful that the commission hears it. There's 7 commissioners. Leslie Robinson is chairs of the commission, and we're grateful to have her on the call tonight. But we want to make sure your comments are heard by all the commissioners as well. So by using the online or the email, then they all are able to see that comment and read it and take it into consideration for when they make these decisions. So with that, I know we've had plenty of opportunity for questions, but I'll a little more room if you want to jot down either of those addresses or offer any other questions. And I believe Mark Cloker is going to give us a little tour of our website on how to comment. Is that right, Mark?
That is correct. Scott, if you want to, I think, stop sharing, and then I should be able to share my screen.
Okay. Did I miss any questions out there before we move on?
I'm not seeing any right now, Scott.
Okay. Okay, well, that I think concludes my presentation. So I'll stop sharing. Thank you for listening, and please comment. Stop sharing. Okay.
All right.
For you.
I'm going to try to share my screen. I think. Is everybody seeing that?
Looks good, Mark.
The outside's in us all? Okay. Okay. So this is just our main web page. It is, I think, well, our web page is a lot better than it used to be. But anyway, if you just come here, it's pretty easy to remember, fwp.mt.gov. And to find where to comment, it's right here in one of these main tabs, if you will. It says 22-23 hunting regulation and proposals. And if you click on that, it takes you kind of the background on a lot of things that Scott's covered tonight. It gives you a direct link to that email. It shows you the schedule of season setting meetings. In fact, I'll go to that right quick. So in other words, under Region 6, this is where we are right here, January 5th for this online CAC meeting. Tomorrow, if I can figure it out or have our web wizards figure it out, I'm going to put this presentation on there. Again, we've got a meeting coming up January 10th in Plentywood, January 11th in Glasgow, and January 12th in Malta. We were in Havre last night. But let me back up to that home screen there. It shows under comment opportunities. I mean, any comments you make, you can kind of cater it towards one of the things you saw tonight if chosen, but this kind of gets you more confined to that particular deal. So in other words, if we click on, I'll just go to deer and elk, I guess, since that seems to be the most of it. The map that Scott Thompson showed you earlier will actually come up here throughout the whole state. And so you can look at any district, maybe you hunt out west somewhere and they're looking at changing something, that's something you can look at and check out. Basically, you can zoom in on the particular district. So if I go over here to 622 and click on it, it'll talk about potentially a boundary change, etc. So that's kind of cool. and interactive. And then you can come down here and either look at the whole statewide elk master list to look at any region and the proposed changes or deer, or you can go to the particular region you're interested in. So if you wanted to check out basically what Scott shared today or point some of your friends to this direction, kind of the same thing will occur. You'll get that map, and then you can see the justifications, the master list, the deer master list, whitetail justification, etc., to find all this stuff. And then below that is where you can comment directly. It'll kind of help, I guess, put down where your comment needs to be directed. You want to, on hunting district 620, and you say, I like this boundary change because da 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 da. You click done, and then that goes, I believe, kind of filters into that particular proposal. Or again, you can email that address right there, and then I believe from that point it gets filtered out somehow to go to where it needs to go. I think that's about all I needed to show there. Any questions on any of that? Okay.
The only thing I would say is if you have difficulties, certainly give us a call or visit with any of the local staff, and they'd be happy to help you get through that. I was on the phone with Ron Garwood earlier today trying to help him get into it. So we're happy to help you. So
absolutely. And again, the comment date goes through January 21st. So you have still, I guess, 3 weeks or so, not quite that, to 2.5 weeks to comment. And again, like Scott's mentioned multiple times, if you don't comment, Leslie and the other commissioners don't hear it. If you just comment in the bar, they're not going to hear it. So please take the time and do that if you can. Appreciate it. I guess with that, unless Drew or Scott, if you guys have anything else to say, I think we're going to move on to our CAC roundtable, which again is a thing that we do at all of our CAC meetings to have our volunteers kind of tell us what's going on and if they have any questions for us or where we're going. So with that, the attendees that are on, you're more than welcome to stay and listen. Or if you have any questions or want to hang out, that's great, that's fine. Or if you want to sign off, I guess it's up to you. We will again go through the CAC members roundtable, and then I think a few of the FWP staff want to talk about a few things, I guess, unrelated to season setting, perhaps too, to the CAC members. So again, if you are going to sign off as a public attendee, we sure appreciate you taking the time to log in and listen to this. And again, like Scott said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give us a call. If you have any pointed questions, for sure, or please comment. So thank you.
Mark, real quick before, just in case we're going to lose some attendees, the only other thing I would add is just another reminder. Next week, we're going to be in Plentywood, Glasgow, and Malta, giving the same presentation in person. Good opportunities to attend those meetings as well. So if you know folks that wanted to attend tonight and couldn't, wanted to get to Haber and couldn't, or otherwise, three more really solid opportunities to come and get your questions answered and listen in. So next week.
Go ahead. I think Leslie was going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we are starting to get batches of the comments that are being made so that we can read through them as they're being submitted. And so I also want to recommend that everybody go through that process and send the comments to us, please. Positive comments also. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. I guess with that, unless anybody else has anything to say, we can start with the roundtable and just hear what you guys have to say. I kind of mentioned an email the other day, CSC members, that Drew and I discussed, just because we haven't met in person for a while, We may try to put something together after this season setting commission meeting is completed in February, just so we can get together and kind of wrap up the hunting season and what's coming up in the spring and a few other things we wanted to share with you. So just look ahead to excuse me, us trying to set a date sometime in late February, maybe early March. I guess with that, I'll turn it over to Perry, if Perry wants to.
Yeah, I can start. Right now, I would love some warmer weather. 0 degrees would be very welcome. I'm kind of tired of this below zero stuff. I saw today where the Glasgow Weather Service said it could be 50 to 55 below tonight. So this is old. And I think because of this weather and the dry summer we had, we're not actually seeing a lot of wildlife as far as any elk, zip on the antelope. And the only deer we have around are the 25 head that are coming in eating my very expensive hay that I purchased this year. So I'm not very happy about that, but we'll see how that goes. There's plenty of coyotes out there and other small critters. Lee said there's a lot of sharp tail sitting on the haystack right now too. I don't know what kind of success the hunters had this year. What few we interacted with were successful. We had a bunch that come out from Wisconsin regularly. None of them had any tags, but they just decided to come out anyway and, just to see the country and leave a few dollars in Montana, which is always nice. I can't complain about any road issues this fall because there was no wet weather. Otherwise, I don't know what's going on. I think it'll be an interesting, because of the drought and what so far is turning into be a not very pleasant winter. I think wildlife numbers will be interesting to see what we have in the spring. So I think that's about what's going on from South Phillips County right now.
Great, thanks, Perry. And maybe Scott Thompson can talk about this a little bit too, but him and his crew are currently kind of looking at least for flying some of our winter surveys anyway for deer in the process. So get some idea.
Yeah, I think we're as interested, Perry, in what the winter will bring with the combination of drought and winter. And we've heard some grumbling from hunters certainly about just, either odd distribution of animals or lack of animals. And so we're in the middle of flying mule deer now. We're flying elk in your area this year as well, and sheep. So yeah, I'll be happy to report what we see when we're all wrapped up. So.
When the hunters did stop and ask where the animals were, I said, find water.
Yeah.
If you can find a water source, you might find some animals. And because by the end of the summer, we didn't have water in a single reservoir or pit around here. They were all dry.
Yeah, that's good advice. Where there's water, there's green maybe too.
Thanks, Perry. Appreciate it. Drew, what's your thoughts on promoting other staff that's on the attendee list for this roundtable, the panelists? Or
yeah, I think that's fine, Mark. I think, can they still raise their hand if they have something they want to say, or
I think so.
Can add to the conversation? We can go that route too. It's up to you.
Yeah,
you're the professional tech guy on this end now. So
okay. So maybe if somebody's got a pointed question to one of the staff, I can promote them or whatever. Maybe that'll be.
Looks like we've got enforcement expertise, fisheries expertise, block management expertise, upland game bird. We're covered.
All right, sounds good to me. All right, let's. I'm just gonna go down the list here. How about Aaron Whitmer? What you got going on, Aaron?
Not much. Did a whole lot of getting out this fall. My 10-year-old harvested his first deer this year, and we've been doing a lot of duck and geese hunting. Ended up shooting a deer. Helped a buddy try to go out and harvest a bighorn sheep. Took my boat down on the river, and so saw mixed bags as far as not a lot of wildlife, but birds, as far as waterfowl, I mean, we did, once we found them, we were able to harvest a lot. But just, so that's kind of how the fall went or whatever. And now winter's setting in, so I guess we'll see how that goes. I was, a couple things, over in this area, the mountain lion harvest was closed or filled really quickly. And who does the, do you guys go out and look for, or, you know, doing surveys and stuff like that, looking for mountain lions? Because it seems like that there was three, I think it was 3 mountain lions harvested on one certain ranch and then 2 on another, you know, and that's over half the objective just for 690, and that's a pretty large area. And, you know, maybe increasing the quota for mountain lion would be appropriate just because it gets filled so fast.
Yeah, good point, Aaron. To answer your question, no, we don't formally survey lions in eastern Montana. We do in the west where densities are a bit higher. There's some mark recapture type studies for lions, but out here, you know, we look at things like age, structure of harvested cats, how quick the quota fills. No doubt there's a big social component. Just, you know, folks are seeing lots of lions, or we're hearing complaints about lion livestock conflicts. And so we have heard some support for more lion, or higher lion quota. And we can do that in April for next year. So it's outside of this season setting process right here, but in April, we'll take a look at lion quotas. And yeah, so I appreciate the input.
I would agree with Aaron.
And there was a lot of hunters that, you know, even commented, they had never ever seen lions before, and they were seeing them, you know, multiple times during a season. And it just seems like it's getting, you know, in 690, the wildlife is pretty plentiful. So where you get plentiful wildlife, you're going to get predators. And it just seems like there's getting more and more lions and out there. So.
Okay, appreciate that report. Thanks.
And just one other thing, just appreciate the commission listening to a lot of the comments as far as the allowing a general season elk tag over in 690. I didn't have my ear bent off by more people over one issue than any other one since I've started this. Even people I didn't even know, you know, that found out I was on the commission, they tracked me down and, you know, saying that this is a bad idea, you know, going to a general season in the bear paws and stuff like that. But it was good to see that it was taken off the agenda and it was changed.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Appreciate your comments and insight. Miles.
Sure. We had a successful season this year. There was more hunters than I've seen in years up here. I think probably ever. But the conditions were extremely dry and windy. I've never hunted in such miserable conditions in my life. But as long as you spent your time out there all day long, you generally were able to do okay. But obviously they didn't kill all of them, because I don't know, I must have saw close to 50 head coming home from Chinook tonight. So, and most of them by Turner, mixed muleys and whitetails. So there's sure plenty of them. Coyote numbers are high, and seeing a lot of red fox. So no elk or moose traveled through this year that I know of. And I think my mountain lion paid a visit here not too long ago. So I have been watching Facebook and the comments on the groups about the statewide elk proposals and stuff. A lot of rhetoric out there. I did make a comment and I shouldn't have. So anyway, it's a pretty volatile topic, seems like, and a lot of groups that constantly talking and absolutely have no interest in trying anything new, which I don't really agree with. I don't see that what's going on in a lot of these areas is working that great. You know, I hunt on the Canadian border and have for years, and if there's no reason for an animal to leave a sanctuary, if they're not getting any pressure, then what good is working the fence where you can hunt if there's no reason for them ever to come across? And their seasons used to close on Saturdays, and they didn't allow Sunday hunting. They wouldn't open up again until Monday. So the final day of our season, the deer would go across the border, and they might only go across 50 yards and sit there all day and thumb their nose at you because they knew they were completely safe. There wasn't anybody driving around. There wasn't anything. And then that all changed when they started Sunday hunting, and they had an excuse to, pretty soon you had movement again. And I think that's what they'd probably find at these places, but that's just my opinion. Other than that, wasn't bad. There was a lot of trespassing issues, I guess, up here during hunting season, but I never really noticed it much down on or up here on my end as much, but down around Turner and other places, I heard of quite a little of it. But, so all in all, not too bad, but I'd agree with Aaron that we need to have a bigger mountain lion quota in 600 and 690. So thanks for everything, guys.
Thank you, Miles. Let's see here. Mr. Fred Perry.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the greatest hunting I've seen in Phillips County this year. And I really don't know of any what I would call nice bucks that were killed. But there was some nice antelope killed. And the fishing at Nelson this fall was excellent, and at Fort Chat. And the coyotes are bountiful. Holy Christ, there's a lot of coyotes. Yeah. I think that I think the coyotes are raising more hell with our antelope than we think. Yeah, did not see very many antelope fawns out this year. And I just have to assume it has to do with the coyotes. And hey, lots of grouse, more grouse than pheasants this year, I think. Yeah. And yeah, and the moose, they're doing well on the Milk River between Saco and Dodson. I've seen numerous moose this year. Numerous moose. Yeah. And the whitetails seem to be doing fine on the river, but you don't see very many out on the creeks where you used to, or not this year. And the water situation is unreal. You got to feel for the rancher. Yeah. Water and hay are just about non-existent. There've been trucks coming through here for the last 3 months. Yeah. But I guess that's about wraps it up. I mean, yeah, it's a really great fall for fishing. Not so great a fall for deer hunting. You take care now.
Thanks, Fred. Hopefully you get some ice fishing done too.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks. Jay Crandall.
Hi, everybody. No, it's been an unusual year. We had above normal or way more deer than I've ever seen in my life up here. But we've also had a lot of hunters, probably more than I've ever seen in my life. It was crazy. You could call it a zoo, I guess. DNRC is kind of a unique situation up in our area with all their land intertwined with ours. And I've talked with the local office in Glasgow about getting some help patrolling and stuff. Ryan and Todd worked their tails off up here this year. There was many tickets wrote for trespassing and other violations, and our court docket in the local paper was full every week. Most of them just laugh at the small fine. They say it's easier than hauling it out. They'd rather drive up to it and load it up. The good news is a lot of deer were taken, and we still have a lot of deer. I think everybody was successful. If they weren't, they were a pretty poor shot. The bird numbers are average. Grouse, pheasant, Hungarians all seem about average. Antelope seem to be doing good. Predators, a lot of coyotes, but we've had a lot of hunters up here, and just heard of one couple that came up from Billings, and they got 20 over Christmas coyotes. So they were pretty happy with their hunt. Red fox are good. It's been a good year. BMA, we had some issues. We have BMA, but we don't have fence BMA. And I watch people drive by the signs, not sign in. People drive all over. I know the people to help patrol it are limited, but it gets a little frustrating, especially to the people that do sign in. Hopefully we can work something out with some of that and make some changes. I'm not sure what, but what else? I agree with Miles about hunting along the border. I grew up along the border, and the deer like to play the game back and forth. And usually when Canada is open, it helps our odds down here for some nice whitetails anyway. What else do I got on my list here? I think that's pretty much it. I have a couple questions, but with my visit with the DNRC, they say they get a couple dollars out of the license fee. I'm not sure if that is true for having land managed. Does that come out of the hunting license, $2? I know they have a fee to go on their land. Is that what they're talking about?
I think, yeah, what they're referring to, Jay, is I used to have to buy it separate as part of your license, but now it's
right.
Do it for hunting and trapping, and then there's a separate recreational license that you can purchase as well.
Camping and stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
they
believe
had a
so.
suggestion of maybe adding another $1 to their pocket for enforcement or help patrolling their lands. But anyway, it was a good year, good hunting season, other than it was crazy. There was pickup after pickup after pickup. It was, and I mean out of state, in-state, locals, and it's hard to control. It's just more calls from people getting mad because somebody run across in front of them. So on their hunt, and you know, what do you say? I guess I don't, but hopefully we can find a solution to it someday. But anyway, the deer numbers are still good, and the cold weather is miserable, but everything else is going pretty good. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jay. I don't know if anybody else, Drew, wanted to add to Jay's question there on the state lands access fee.
I don't have anything else to add, Mark. I think the fees you described cover it, the ones that I know of anyway.
That their suggestion was to add another $1 to get more in patrolling or enforcement on their agency to help, I guess. I don't know. That was just the local office, so I hadn't talked to anybody in Helena. So.
Yeah, it's something to keep in mind anyway. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ken Forbreg.
Good evening. First and foremost, Scott's presentation was excellent. He obviously is up to par on, his plate is full. It's really full. And I admire him for what he's doing for Region 6 with Fish, Wildlife and Parks. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of a strange year over here by Culbertson. The Corps of Engineers decided to let double the CFS, which was supposed to raise the river by 2 feet in Culbertson, and it raised it by 8 feet. The reason being is that during the time that they were raising that, there was a downstream jam, and that creates an 8-foot rise of water at Culbertson. So, and the reason being is they're supposedly balancing the flows. I keep up with this pretty much on a daily basis, balancing the flows of the reservoirs all the way down to the Mississippi River. So that was interesting anyway. So nobody's been fishing the river. Hopefully here soon they will, but because of the irregular influx, nobody's been fishing the river. It was a tough year with the EHD with our whitetail. We have very few left, but the ones that I have seen were in my backyard the last 2 days, visiting my raspberry patch. So anyway, we all have cameras now, you know, for whatever reason. And so our pheasant population, it was a pretty good year for pheasant hunters. I'm glad to see, I hope they do extend that date through January. Roosters do raise a lot of cane on hens throughout the year. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't think it's going to hurt a thing. Other than that, Ike's Pond is doing really well. We have many fish over 13 inches. If you don't recall, they were 5 to 6 inches when we put them in May. And we have a lot of people out there on a regular basis fishing and catching trout. And we're doing a lot of ice skating. Mother Nature's been tough with the weather. But anyway, everything's well at Culbertson. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, I keep up with your Ike's Fishing Pond page, and it's pretty awesome things you guys are doing over there. Sure appreciate it.
That's going well.
Good. Lars.
Yeah, no, I think similar to what a lot of folks have talked about, it was an interesting season. I think a lot of the stuff was out there, just not where we were used to looking for it. And if you could locate them again, like Aaron did with his waterfowl, you did okay. And if you couldn't, like I did with doves, you just really didn't get any. So it definitely an interesting year. No, I think just like a lot of you, cold and dry, looking for some moisture. We've got our bison handling coming up in 3 weeks, so we're pretty much ready for that. I know the guys are running a snowblower, trying to get the alleys all cleared out so you can get the gates to swing today. And hopefully we get more snow and have to do it again, because that means we'll have a little more moisture, but that's coming up. And so if anybody's interested in coming out to look at that, let me know, shoot me an email. And we've got time frames when folks can come out, and we'll show you around and show you how the whole operation goes. I think that's about it for me, and I'm going to have to bail out. I've got a couple kids that need to go to bed.
Understood. All right. Thanks, Lars. Appreciate it. Thanks for being on.
See you guys.
See ya. Scott, Azure.
Yes, sir. Well, I guess I'll just repeat what everybody else has been saying. Pretty darn cold. The deer hunting this fall, I mean, the numbers were okay. I mean, you know, wherever I went, I found a ton of deer. I think the problem a lot of people had, including myself and a lot of people I talked to, was finding mature deer, as far as bucks go. But I mean, you know, we have years that are ups and downs, and like I said, maybe they just weren't where I was used to hunting them, and they might have been somewhere else. We were glad to see the CFS come up out of the spillway, or out of the lake. The mouth of our river down here was getting pretty skinny, so that came up just in time to freeze over, and I think we're having some decent ice fishing down on the river here. Our birds were pretty good this year. I mean, we always have a ton of birds. Our birds here have always been fantastic. And it looks like they're still doing well. I mean, I've been up north a few times, just a few miles north of town, and there's birds everywhere. I mean, they're out in the fields. So, and with the little bit of snow we get, I mean, if we can get some more, we might have a decent runoff again this year on the Poplar River. Hopefully get a few walleye to come up in the spring. I mean, it was pretty sad this spring. As far as walleye fishing on the Poplar, which is usually pretty good in the spring. I think I've caught many fish with tags that have actually come out of Region 7, and they've been, you know, when you get the information on them, they've been back and forth from here to Sakakawea. So, I mean, that led me to believe that, you know, a lot of these big spawning fish that we catch and release in the Poplar here in April are coming all the way from Sakakawea to spawn. And then that leads me to a question for, I guess it'd be Drew. Are you guys going to allow volunteers to help out with the walleye spawn this year?
That I believe so, Scott, and that might be a better question for Steve, just as a verification.
Yeah.
He is on as an attendee. Mark, maybe you can elevate him to a panelist or unmute him.
I think I just did.
There we go.
I think, Steve, I think you're a panelist now. Hope.
Think he's there.
Hey,
oh,
can you hear?
Hey.
There you go. Yeah, Scott, I think we're going to push to have that open to the public this year. So what I'd ask you to do, like in years past, is touch base with Heath. Give me a call and I'll connect you or whatever. But yeah, I'm hoping we can open it up this year.
Good. I got a high school science teacher in class that, you know, I've brought over for 4 or 5 years, and this past couple of years they've been kind of missing it. So there were some students that were coming up into his class that kind of missed out on it, and they were a little bummed out. But you know, it is what it is.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Other FWP folk on the attendees list, I'm going to promote you to panelists in case anybody has questions for you, and or if you have anything to say. So make sure if your video's on that you got clothes on and whatnot. I think it takes a minute to to actually send you through there. So I'm not going to pick on anybody from other regions though. All right, I think. Okay, great. And also, just to get them set to go or whatever, Leslie, is there anything else you'd like to add or visit with the CAC about?
sorry. No, I don't think so. It's just good for me to listen to everything and see what's going on everywhere, and feel free to call me or email me if you have any input for me, but make sure you actually, your comments, will go through the actual official comment. I think that's, oh, and I won't be able to make it to the meetings next week. I just want to let everybody know. But I did go to Havre last night and listened in tonight. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. We appreciate you taking the time to come to these as much as you can. So appreciate it. I know everybody else does as well. I guess not to put anybody on the spot, but Steve, again, I think, did you have something you want to mention to the group about management plans?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Good evening, everybody. Hey, just real quick, the one thing that I have on my agenda is the Fort Peck management plan expires this year, and so we'll be working through a public process over the course of 2022. We're going to start with a survey of anglers to identify what those key issues are, and then start building a plan around those issues. One thing that really differs from the Fresno plan that you're familiar with is that we've had a management plan on Fort Peck for 30 years now. This will be the fourth iteration of a management plan. So we're not starting from scratch. The plan is out there. If you're interested in the plan, it's been an effective plan through the years, and especially the last 10 years. I think it's been a real good working document for us. But be aware, we're going to update that in 2022, and we'll be working close with the CAC as well as the commission. So any questions?
Steve.
Yeah, Scott.
Hey, do you foresee in the future some type of slot limit coming for Fort Peck on walleye?
You know, I know that's going to be an issue that we're going to talk about and deal with in the plan. There's a lot of discussion that'll go into that, and a lot of data that'll go into that as well, Scott. So that's where we're at.
Okay, just curious.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess anybody else, Shane?
Hey, Mark.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Luana so kindly pointed out that I think we forgot Brian. I think he's still on the phone.
Brian is still on the phone. Sorry, Brian. I missed the number there. It doesn't really pop up. If you would like to say a few things, please unmute yourself with *6.
Okay, I'm back on here now. Yeah, I kind of quit fishing the reservoir in mid-August. My fish per gallon of gas, gasoline went pretty high again, and this end of the lake was really tough for especially walleye fishing. And I generally don't fish over about 50 foot for them. I don't know if they were deeper than that or not, but it got pretty tough out there. The river's been very consistent, with the exception of my big releasing fish I like to catch. They were a lot tougher. They're just a lot tougher now to come by. We've got a lot of 16 and 17s, which are great eaters out there, but the big fish are kind of gone for this year. I don't know if it's because of the fluctuation of water or what the heck has happened. Hunting for me has been, I killed a 6-point bull this year, and I got a cow, and I killed an A-tag. 2 of them I donated, and of course I kept, 1 elk to eat. So my hunting has been just super. People that were worried about horns, yeah, I think because of the drought that most of us kind of thought that the horns, they're probably down 20 to 30 inches this year. I think that the animal size was still pretty good, but the horn size was down. My pheasant hunting was good, except for I hunt on Scott Azure's property out there. And I, around here to get on block management, and I know that, other people that try to hunt block around here, it gets wiped out fairly rapidly. And it's, I know we've talked about it before, but on the opening week or two, it's solid Washington plates out there, and maybe that's what's desired. I don't know. That really doesn't help the locals, and I know that with what I pay for here and the reservation, I pay more for a pheasant tag than what out-of-staters pay, and I think that's wrong, but that's something maybe you guys can address in the future. I know you like to have them, and I know the business people like to have them, but boy, they're kind of a dime a dozen out here. But yeah, I mean, that's about it for me. I can't complain about hunting. It's good. Fishing is good. I'm hoping that those fish that are in the lake come back up on this end at some point in time, but I wasn't finding them. That's all I'll say there. So no, it's been good though. That's all I have.
Thanks, Brian. And again, I apologize. I missed you there.
Not a problem.
As far as from the communication education standpoint, just a couple of things I wouldn't mind just kind of throwing out there. One is that we're basically back all in the clear to have classes again as of starting actually last June, but there was a lot of hesitancy as we moved into the fall, I think, just of kind of regrouping and starting over again. But I'm really anticipating that, you know, a lot of our classes get cranked up in February, March, April, May. And I've already had a lot of interest from instructors of getting classes going again. So I think it's very positive. We have our instructor workshops for all hunter, bow, and red instructors in the region coming up in April. Really looking forward to kind of getting back to normal in the hunter ed world. Another thing I want to mention, just because potentially before we meet again, this may be out there, but we've been moving forward on some fancy, I guess, change in our licensing system called Explore MT or XMT. Which will eventually replace the license selling system that we currently have, the ALS systems down the road. But starting supposedly February 28th for the new license year, there will be an app available for folks with smartphones that basically will be a digital wallet, if you will. I learned a little bit more about it today, but basically we'll have the ability to have digital carcass tags with that technology. By choice, you can either choose to continue to have paper tag or potentially digital tag for even a deer that you, or a mountain lion or a turkey that you quote unquote punch out on your phone. So anyway, some big changes coming there. I'll obviously keep you guys in the loop as we kind of had a meeting today that was talking about how are we gonna, as communication and educators, how we're going to present this and roll it out to the public. So I'll keep you guys in the loop on that as things occur. One last thing, I'm part of me and Ken Flord are part of a R3, recruit, retain, and reactivate folks. We're on a working group that's looking hard at Montana of how and if we need to continue to make efforts to recruit folks into outdoor recreation or retain more or reactivate more. And so we've got a lot going on with that. But next time we meet in person, I'll try to give you a better rundown on kind of what progress we're making there. But that's all I got. Drew, do you have anything to add on region-wide things?
Well, I don't know if I necessarily have anything that I need to add tonight, but I will say Mark mentioned, we're talking about trying to get together in person, in person, maybe a little sooner than we typically do, perhaps late February or March sometime. And I'm really looking forward to that meeting for a number of reasons. There's just a lot going on right now. Steve mentioned fish management plans. We just presented on season setting. The commission is going to review these comments that folks are going to submit relative to these proposals and make those decisions in February. So we'll have a lot to discuss relative to those changes, if any of those are made. The XMT rollout in February. I think there's a lot here. And tonight's meeting was great with, we focused heavily on season setting, and I hope it was beneficial for everybody that attended. It sort of gives you a glimpse into this process. I would still encourage you, if you have a meeting in your area, to attend it. The in-person is great because I think it does certainly, just being face-to-face, it allows people to be a little more candid, for the conversation to maybe be a little more in-depth. So certainly, if you can, take advantage of that opportunity, but otherwise, I really appreciate everybody taking the time. It's not easy in the middle of the week to do a Zoom until here we are, 8:15, 8:20. We all have families, we all have kids, and we all have, things we need to do with our lives, but I appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward to seeing everybody in person the next time we get together.
Great, awesome. I guess I will ask, we still got a few attendees on. Do any of you folks have any questions or comments you'd like to make?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
It's pretty cool with today's technology. We're 23 of us that I'm looking at the screen. I'm approximately 23, can get together and do this. But it's hard to beat face-to-face. This is pretty cool that we're able to do this, but I look forward to meeting you all face-to-face whenever we can. Thank you.
Same here, Ken.
I would like to thank Scott on a great presentation on the redistricting. I think if something isn't working, you have to try something new, and I think this is a good approach, and it's like anything, you see how it goes, I guess. So appreciate all the work he's put into it, and you guys, and Happy New Year.
Thanks, Jay. Happy New Year.
And along Ken's note there, I was kind of visiting with the guys last night. I think even in the future, COVID or no COVID, I think at least doing one season setting type meeting, or maybe it's a CWD meeting or whatever new thing that we typically do public meetings for. I think having this format at least can capture folks that aren't able to maybe attend one in person. And I think it's at minimum something we should continue in the future, at least on a smaller level. So thanks, Ken. With that, I don't have anything else unless anybody else wants to
Well, hopefully see you in February or March. All for it.
Yes, all right, that sounds good. Hopefully it'll be warmer. And
let's make that an ice fishing meeting out on the dredge cut.
Now you're talking,
like
Scott.
We'll rent some of them ice houses.
Maybe a 2-dayer. If Drew said it's going to be a long meeting, we can just leave some tip ups out on the dredge cuts overnight.
And can we wait till it gets like 10 below?
Yeah, it's got to be at least 0.
Yeah.
Little balmy.
Thanks again, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys. I'll end it
Thank you
there.
all. Good night.
Appreciate it.
Good night, Mark. Good night.
See you guys. Thanks for everything.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Fred. Nice job.
Thanks, Fred.